We have been talking about Hell's Angels, the Outlaws, Bandidos, Pagans, almost every day now. Today, I am going to tell you the tale of a biker gang that are the old school bandits and the most violent motorcycle gang in the West. They are the ones who don't follow the law of society, the criminal Brotherhood, the Sons of Silence. The Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club was founded in Niwot, Colorado in 1966 by Bruce Gale, the Dude Richardson, who was living in Longmont after serving in the U.S. Navy from July 1958 to February 1960. Richardson later left the club and died of natural causes in Scottsbluff, Nebraska on March 26, 2013. The Sons of Silence's national headquarters were moved to Colorado Springs. Another influential figure in the club's history was Leonard Lloyd J.R. Reed, Jr., also a Navy veteran who served from 1965 until 1969. Reed succeeded Richardson as the Sons of Silence's national president in 1977 and held the position for 22 years. In the 1990s, Reed and Richard Lester, an attorney and motorcyclist, formed the Colorado Confederation of Clubs, which improved communication between motorcycle clubs and provided a means to avoid conflict. Reed died at the age of 55 in Denver on June 20, 2003, and was given a club funeral, featuring a large funeral procession of motorcyclists on Interstate 25. The club is based primarily in the Mountain States and the Midwest. The first chapter outside Colorado was the Iowa chapter, which was founded in 1968, and an alliance with the Hell's Angels enabled the Sons of Silence to further expand. There are now U.S. chapters in Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. The first international chapter was founded in Munich, Germany in 1998. In 2001, additional German chapters were founded in Freising, Gangkofen, and Nuremberg. Branches in Viernheim, Erding, and Pfarrkirchen were established in 2007, 2010, and 2016, respectively. The Sons of Silence's insignia features an American eagle superimposed over the letter A. The emblem is similar to, and inspired by, the Anheuser-Busch logo. This insignia is worn as a patch that is sewn on the back of each full member's cut-off jacket, known as colors, along with assorted other badges featuring symbols and phrases. The additional patches worn by Sons of Silence members commonly include the 1% emblem and Totenkopf imagery. The club's motto is Donec mors non separat, a Latin phrase meaning until death separates us. The Sons of Silence are classified as an outlaw motorcycle gang by the United States Department of Justice and have traditionally been considered part of the Big Five biker gangs, along with the Bandidos, the Hell's Angels, the Outlaws, and the Pagans. The club has since been surpassed in membership size by the Mongols, however. The Sons of Silence are involved in numerous criminal activities, including murder, assault, drug trafficking, intimidation, extortion, prostitution operations, money laundering, weapons trafficking, and motorcycle parts theft. The club is allied with the Hell's Angels and the Iron Horsemen, and is a rival of the Outlaws. The Sons of Silence are among the most active motorcycle club in Colorado. The club maintains a number of chapters in the state, including in Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Aurora, Grand Junction, and 2 in Denver. The Sons of Silence are involved in the distribution of methamphetamine at wholesale and retail levels in Colorado, obtaining the drug from Mexican drug cartels and also producing it themselves in Weld County. The Coloradan chapters of the club also transport and distribute methamphetamine to other states, including North Dakota. 6 members, Scott Benigsdorf, John Barnard, Bobby Mann, Art Miller, Mark Wagar, and National President Bruce Richardson, were charged with assault with a deadly weapon and jailed for their involvement in a bar brawl in Colorado Springs on March 5, 1972. The brawl involved a total of 22 participants and was the result of a power struggle between the Sons of Silence and 2 other motorcycle clubs, the Dead Men and a group known as Philtown. Some of the Sons of Silence members arrested were involved in an alleged conspiracy to kill police and kidnap the children of police officers earlier that year. Sons of Silence member Brian Carl Young was convicted of criminally negligent homicide in the death of a 16-year-old girl who was killed when Young accidentally discharged a .22 caliber Ruger rifle that he had been making alterations to at the Sons of Silence clubhouse in Commerce City on October 3, 1982. 6 members of the Sons of Silence, Jack E. Hauser Jr., James Dean, Jimmy Jonke, Gerald W. Richardson, Larry Lee Richardson, Dennis Raymond Swingler, and Ralph W. Vickery, were convicted of conspiracy to manufacture and distribute methamphetamine after Hauser, Janke, Swingler, and Vickery were arrested on I-80 in Wyoming while transporting 36 pounds of the drug, as well as a mobile drug lab obtained from Cecilia Martinez, wife of the imprisoned Bar Hoppers Motorcycle Club president Glenn Gary, in Modesto, California, on January 23, 1983, to Denver. The convictions followed an FBI investigation into the Colorado Sons of Silence, which commenced in September 1981 and was aided by FBI informant Beth Fisher, the divorced wife of club member Robert Fisher. A Sons of Silence member was charged with the murder of a member of the Diablos Lobos gang who was killed in an Aurora bar amidst a turf war involving the groups in 1983. Another bar fight involving the Sons of Silence and the Invaders motorcycle gang at a Denver tavern resulted in a series of sporadic shootings. Sons of Silence biker Ron Bemis was shot to death in his driveway by Invaders member Alfred H. Crazy Al Mills, who was subsequently convicted of murder. 24 Sons of Silence member Paul Robert P. Catwell was Montario Klein was shot and killed by Eugene Herbert Bayless at Jim and I's Star Bar in Colorado Springs, where Klein was the bar manager, on April 17, 1993. Bar patron Stephen Fairfax was also killed, and 5 others were wounded. 25 Bayless, who was armed with an AK-47 assault rifle and 4 hand grenades, only stopped his shooting spree after he was shot and wounded by a police officer. Bayless claimed that Klein had shot him with a pellet gun earlier that day, and that he had gone to the bar to detain him until police had arrived. He was acquitted of murder and other charges in 1995 after his attorneys argued that he fired in self-defense. 126 Bayless would later be sentenced to 3 years in prison on federal weapons charges and was killed in a shootout with Bureau of Land Management, BLM, officers in May 2018. 27 The shootout at Gemini's was the subject of The Outlaw, Episode 10 of Season 6 of the investigation discovery documentary series Homicide Hunter. The first Sons of Silence chapter in Indiana was formed in the 1970s by Michael Righteous Mike Ramsey, a former member of the Outlaws who left that club in 1974 amid internal dissension and was granted permission by Sons of Silence founder Bruce "The Dude" Richardson to establish an SOSMC chapter in Indianapolis. Ramsey went on to serve as national president of the Sons of Silence before retiring from the club. 33, he died of a heart attack at the age of 50 on March 10, 1991. 34, the Sons of Silence's expansion into Indianapolis prompted friction with the Outlaws, and after a period of infrequent fighting in which members of the rival clubs would try to physically take the colors from opposing bikers, a war erupted following the July 1978 near-fatal stabbing of Outlaws member Dale "Dummy" Lark during a bar fight on the city's west side. 36, the conflict between the Sons of Silence and the Outlaws in Indianapolis in the late 1970s and early 1980s resulted in a number of murders, including those of 2 girlfriends of SOSMC members. On March 5, 1980, 2 gunmen opened fire with automatic rifles on the Outlaws clubhouse at 1210 East Ohio Street, killing Outlaws National Vice President Thomas Walter "Satan" Reeves. Hours before the shooting, members of the Sons of Silence and the Outlaws drank together at a bar on the east side of Indianapolis. Sons of Silence bikers were then marched from the Outlaws clubhouse at gunpoint after entering the premises. On November 15, 1981, Outlaws member John "Big Jack" Slater was left paralyzed after being shot with a .38 caliber pistol by Sons of Silence member Eric "Doc" Lewandowski outside the Sons clubhouse. Slater was then bundled into a van and killed with a 12-gauge shotgun by another Sons of Silence member, Hendrik "Savage" Jansen. Lewandowski was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, while Jansen was acquitted as he testified that he believed Slater was already dead when he shot him. 16. Bruce Burke Eastman was killed with a shotgun as he answered the door of the Sons of Silence Indianapolis clubhouse on the 30th of May, 1984. Sons of Silence enforcer Ronald Merrill. Bad Ron Gruber was sentenced to 35 years in prison for rape and assault in Black Hawk County in October 1977. 44. While in Iowa State Penitentiary, he and another inmate were sued by two guards whom they assaulted. After being released, Gruber was one of a number of club members convicted on a 1994 federal racketeering charges. Sons of Silence member Clark Joseph Cook was convicted of possession of methamphetamine after he was found to be carrying a bag of the drug during a traffic stop by the Iowa State Patrol on September 5, 1993. 14 members or former members were indicted in Cedar Rapids in November 1994, charged with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy, and committing violence in aid of racketeering. 12 were immediately arrested and eventually pleaded guilty or were convicted. Milton Charles Barbed Wire Wilson, the president of the Sons of Silence's Kansas City chapter, was charged in May 2014 with transporting a minor across state lines for prostitution, along with Kayla Foxy Pinkerton, 55. Wilson transported Pinkerton and the victim to various locations in Missouri and Kansas in December 2013. Both plead guilty to the crime on April 1, 2015. In September 2015, Wilson was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment, and Pinkerton was sentenced to 16 months. In August 1984, Sons of Silence founder Bruce the Dude Richardson was sentenced to 6 years in prison after pleading guilty to hiring Robert Leslie Kunitsky to organize the May 1984 abduction of Dr. Michael Rourke from a Buffalo hotel. It was claimed that Rourke owed Richardson's wife, Patricia Stranahan, approximately $260,000 after a failed business venture, and that the abduction was an attempt to retrieve some of this money after court proceedings to recover the funds had failed. As well as Stranahan, 3 others are sentenced in connection with the abduction: Michael Ratley, Robert Jordan, and Ariel Falcon. The Sons of Silence have established chapters in Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, and Minot. The club is involved in methamphetamine trafficking throughout North Dakota, typically using smaller affiliated motorcycle gangs to distribute the drug at the retail level in order to gain insulation from law enforcement scrutiny. Mexican-produced methamphetamine is transported into North Dakota for distribution from Sons of Silence chapters in other states, primarily Colorado. 15. The Sons of Silence are alleged to have ordered the murder of Williston rancher Jack Sjohl, who went missing in April 2013 and whose body was found in rural Williams County the following month. Sons of Silence members Corey Rutherford, Matthew James Wedgwood, and Nicholas B. Hansen pleaded guilty to charges stemming from an incident at a bar in Rock Springs in which they beat and robbed Bradley Chrisman, a member of the rival Bad 7 Motorcycle Club, of his colors on April 10, 2017. The trio received suspended prison sentences in October 2017.